All right, we are headed down the Alabama River. It is representative of that those who were enslaved were brought to into Montgomery, right down here. So I'm gonna let you all have that experience. Let's get you on there so you can see it. Camera. How's everybody doing? Good. How about you? Right. Got some safety rules to go over real quick. Okay. We have life preservers under the seats. The instructions to put them on are above your heads. We are not going to need them. They're for emergency stuff. Same case with the fire extinguishers. If we do need them, we have three of them. One in the front, one by the midship, and one in the back. Please remain seated. And there's going to be a narration playing, so please keep your voices down for those that would like to hear. You're right. Thank you. When it was happening, there were no trucks like that. I don't know what was above. Maybe it wasn't not even a bridge. When slaves were being, those who were enslaved were being trafficked.
The Alabama River is formed by the Tallapoosa and Coosa rivers just miles north of Montgomery, near Wisconsin. It runs west, Selma, under the Evan Pettus Bridge, the site of the historic Bloody Sunday and Selma to Montgomery marches, resulted in the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The river stretches approximately 315 miles and ultimately discharges into Mobile Bay and the Gulf of Mexico. Before the arrival of Europeans, the Alabama River was home to abundant animal life and vegetation. Its spring flooding rejuvenated soil for indigenous farmers who also into their dams to fish. Indigenous peoples also used canoes to visit neighboring communities to forge trade and political ties. Indigenous communities established numerous towns along or near the Alabama River. As European settlers came into the region, things changed. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the United States acquired great swaths of land to the south of the original 13 colonies. White settlers in search of cheap or fertile land began to move to this area from states in the United States, including North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky. These settlers brought with them enslaved black people to work for them and to care for their land. By the 1790s, the invention of the cotton gin allowed for increased production. The rising price of cotton created incentives for settlers to expand their plantations and their supply of enslaved workers. In territories that would later become the lower South states of Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Florida, the demand for enslaved black people skyrocketed. Steamboats became regularly used in commerce on U.S. rivers in 1807. By 1818, they were the primary portals for trafficking enslaved people from the north to the deep south. Travel by river greatly reduced the amount of time needed to traffic enslaved people. The 1840 steamboats, which could carry over 200 enslaved people at a time, could complete a 250-mile journey at under command. Some boats were specifically built to traffic enslaved people. Traffickers used these boats to communicate with enslavers up and down the river to arrange sales and secure financial baggage. The major routes that steamboats used to traffic enslaved people were down the Mississippi. Tens of thousands of enslaved people were trafficked in the first half of the 1800s, and along the east coast around the Gulf of Mexico. Enslaved people were brought to Montgomery from Mobile and New Orleans via the Alabama River. Once they arrived at a port, enslavers would parade enslaved people through the streets to be sold in the cities, slave markets, after which they would be loaded aboard another ship or be led by land to a plantation or other forced labor. Thousands of enslaved people were also forced to work, which were used by white passengers for travel, leisure, and gambling. Enslaved workers performed the most difficult and dangerous job on the steamboat. Hundreds of trafficked and laboring enslaved people died on the steamboats every year of disease, privation, boiler explosion, and other hazards. The brutal laboring conditions in the Deep South, the separation from loved ones, made being sold down the river a horrific and fear. The constant threat of being sold was an enormous burden. Slave people who were sold and trafficked by river endured horrific conditions before the river.
Huh?
Enslaved people were confined on the boat with little protection from the elements. One formerly enslaved person wrote of the lower deck where enslaved people were forced to travel in overcrowded conditions. Another formerly enslaved person wrote, quote, as all were chained together night and day, it was impossible to sleep, being annoyed by the bustle and crowd of the passengers, by the terrible thought that we were destined to be sold in markets as sheep or oxen, and annoyed by the galling chains that cramped our lives. Enslaved people were kept away from the edges of the boat and escape. Some who were able to make it to the edge of the ship drowned themselves in the river. Few enslaved people escaped slavery by stowing aboard northbound boats and steamships. Police patrolled the rivers to catch those who attempted to run away. The white passengers traveled in close proximity to people who were enslaved, being trafficked in inhumane conditions. They were largely indifferent to them. One enslaved person forced to work on a riverboat called, quote, "The drove of slaves on the southern steamboat bound to the cotton and sugar regions is an occurrence so common that no one, not even the passenger, feared it. They clanked their chains." Trafficking by river dominated the Alabama River between 1820 and 1860. The population of enslaved people in Alabama rose from 40,000 in 1820 to 400,000 by the start of the war.
So can you imagine being on a boat that's taking you to south, right? To be enslaved. You imagine what that must have been like to know where you were going or know that where you were going was not good. So imagine. So the boat is slowing down. You know when you get off, ain't nothing good waiting on you. The courage it took to just continue on, continuing on.